What's going on, everyone? Golden Ticket to History here at the former location of the Sunland Hospital in Orlando, Florida. This hospital was here from the 1960s into the 1980s. It originally was a tuberculosis hospital that closed down once a cure was found for tuberculosis, and eventually became a facility used to house children who were mentally, developmentally, cognitively disabled. So after this facility closed down as a tuberculosis center, it became a center used to house those children who were mentally, cognitively, developmentally disabled. And it stayed that way until 1980, 1981, when it closed down. It was closed down because it found out that there was a lot of neglect, a lot of abuse, and a lot of unethical medical practices. I've been to a couple different places in the last couple hours, and they all were pretty calm. Since being at this location, even when I first got here, it was pretty calm, and now it's quite breezy. I'm not really sure what the cause of that is. It could just be the fact of it getting later in the day, but I was about a mile from here, and it was as still as could be, and it's no longer still. So most of the facilities are gone. There's a few remnants left over. It was actually still intact up until about 20 years ago, when a young teenager fell 3 stories down, and I'm not sure, they either got injured badly or potentially were deceased afterwards. Been some mixed views in relations to the accounts. After they tore it down, they turned it into a park, but it's, as you can see, it's a completely silent park. No children play here. Parents don't allow their children to play here because of its past. There's belief that there was a lot of potential paranormal activity at this facility. It's believed that there was potential poltergeist activity, people being pushed, people being shoved, people being potentially injured by things that they couldn't see. And that was something that enticed young people to come here, to come and to see if they could experience those experiences. So it's a lot of people still come out here. They try to do different paranormal investigations. As you can see right there, there's now a sign saying no trespassing, which kind of seems as almost as an oxymoron as it being a public park. As you can see, there is a walking trail. There are some exercising spaces in different parts of the park. There's a place to park your bikes. There's a playground back that way in the back of the park that's gated in. So on one hand it says no trespassing, on the other hand it's a public park to exercise. Not really sure what to think of that. But anyhow, this was the former location of the Sunland Hospital. There's a few remnants that you can kind of see. There is some stuff on the back side of the property, on the back side of the park, where there's this one section that some people believe could potentially be the remnants of the elevator shaft, where that young teenager potentially could have fallen down. I'm not sure if that is or not. Maybe you know something. You can put it down in the comments. Maybe you have a little bit more history about it. I'm going to do a few voiceovers, to kind of just add a little more historical aspects of it to this video. Maybe you have some of your own personal experiences. You can see back here, there's these 2 wooden posts, which are actually original from when it used to be the Sunland Hospital. I'm going to include a clip of the sign that says the Sunland signage on it, what it used to look like before, and now it's just 2 posts at the end of a sidewalk. Not really sure why. Over that way, there's supposed to be a juvenile detention center. Towards the back side, there's supposed to be a youth sports complex. I'm not really sure if there's like baseball fields, football fields, or what there is down there. But this is supposed to be a public park. Exercise equipment, playgrounds, and it is, for lack of better words, it's dead. If you go about 30 minutes east of here to Greenwood Cemetery, that's where you could find the final resting places of many of the former patients who lived here at the facilities and were unfortunately potentially abused here at this facility. There's been talks about disembodied voices, people have heard footsteps around them. There has been lots of different things. Let me know if you have any experiences. Maybe you've experienced something here at Sunland and would like to share. Maybe you want an investigation here. Put down in the comments. Let me know what you have to think. What your experiences are. What do you think about this? As with anywheres, you don't want to overstay your welcome. So I want to just come here, pay my respects, hope that the victims who did unfortunately lose their lives are resting in peace. That if there is something supernatural here, that it can find some level of solace in the fact that it's no longer a facility here. The unfortunate negative events that occurred during its time could potentially be put to rest. Hopefully. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Around 1952, a new series of state-of-the-art tuberculosis hospitals opened and were named W.T. Edwards, in honor of an important figure in the state's healthcare industry who donated large sums of money to have the hospital built. Between 1952 and 1969, a total of 12 hospitals were built all over the state of Florida, including Tallahassee, Miami, Marietta, Tampa, and Orlando. All the hospital buildings were constructed in the same way. The main buildings were all very long and thin, consisting of 5 floors with a few smaller wings branching off the main building. At the time, it was thought that fresh air was the best treatment for TB, so the buildings were riddled with multi-pane windows which could be opened by cranks. The backside of each building was a wall of windows, while the front windows were more evenly spaced apart, especially in sections that did not house patients. When a vaccine for tuberculosis was discovered, there was no longer a need for tuberculosis hospitals, and the W.T. Edwards hospitals were all closed by the 1960s. The facilities fell under the jurisdiction of the Department of Health, state of Florida, and were reopened as Sunland Training Centers by 1961. The main Sunland building located in Orlando was the only one not housed in a former W.T. Edwards facility. The Orlando Sunland Division was a residential facility that cared for profoundly mentally and physically disabled adults and children. Within a period of 10 years, though, the hospital faced some crippling developments, mostly due to understaffing and a lack of funds. An investigation was conducted in the 1970s after reports of abuse and neglect ranging from getting bitten by rodents and pests to physical beatings. Speaking strictly of the Orlando Sunland Center, investigations found that over 400 patients had gastric feeding tubes and were being fed a cereal-like gruel 3 times a day. Investigations also showed the facility was maintaining unsafe surgical areas and using short-term doctor authorizations to administer treatments on a long-term basis. The State Division of Retardation and local staff made promises for reform, but reform never occurred. After careful review from the Association of Retarded Citizens, ARC, filed a federal class action lawsuit in 1978 on behalf of the patients based off of gross neglect and abuse. The move forced the state of Florida to close all Sunland facilities by 1983. It was reported afterwards that a shortage of staff and equipment led to a proliferation of deformities in patients. The deformities included upper respiratory infections, urinary tract infections, skin breakdowns, and nutritional difficulties, all of which were much too common at Sunland Orlando. The building laid vacant for years afterwards, attracting kids because of stories of the building being haunted. In June of 1997, a 23-year-old man and 3 friends were supposedly playing hide-and-seek inside the facility when one of them fell down the elevator shaft 3 floors and found himself being paralyzed. Pine Hills residents lobbied hard after the accident to have the buildings leveled by the state. $2 million was set aside by the state and demolition was approved. In August of 1998, a pre-demolition ceremony took place outside the old dilapidated hospital as residents celebrated the buildings being torn down, as well as some were interviewed at the time. Some of the people who worked in the hospital remember the place being jammed with roaches. They would do pest control, but roaches would get inside the fire alarms and set them off, closing the fire doors. They also remembered patients being bathed in hard slabs and clunking of bodies as they turned. After being torn down in 1999, all the remains of the Sunland facility is the old administration building by the time By the time this video is taken, the old administration building was also torn down. So all that remains is some slight remnants, some elevator shaft, which could potentially be the one that the gentleman fell down, the old post from the sign.
So yeah, there's definitely a feeling of uneasiness here. There's definitely still some negative energy that you can feel just standing on the property. There's a level of heaviness you can feel. I can even feel it on my arms, I can feel it on my legs. You can feel a level of pressure. And it's hard, even when we tear down facilities, even when you try to rid a space of the unimaginable things that occurred, that negative energy doesn't go away easily, doesn't go away lightly. And in some cases, it still leaves a stamp on the location where it occurred. So yeah, as always, continue to look for the history in film, history around us, everywhere as we walk, everywhere as we go, everyone we talk to, all of our experiences, all lead to some form of history. Till next time.